Entering 2023, the Wildcats had what would be considered a down year for this program in 2022, which seems really crazy to say, especially knowing the history of Kentucky football. Mark Stoops has always lifted this program to new heights, and now he's got to face it without his star quarterback, Will Levis. So will Kentucky be one of the teams in the SEC that surprise and exceed above expectations, or will Kentucky continue to fall in more of a free fall like fashion in 2023? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. Prediction season is here, and it means I'm predicting all 133 college football FBS level teams. And more likely than not, that means I'm doing your favorite team. So why don't you go ahead and hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when I upload your favorite team. And you can do more than just that by helping to support my channel. Watching this video is one of the ways you're doing it, and you're doing it right now. But you can also like, comment, share, anything you're able to do to help support the channel would mean the world and mean a whole lot to me. So why don't we talk about Kentucky in 2023, shall we? Mark Stoops' group has definitely got a little bit of a challenge ahead, but they brought in some really good transfers, and this is another team in the SEC that's going to be a sleeper contender. How previews work this year, we go through a roster overview, look at who the team lost, look at who's returning, and looking at who's coming in via the transfer portal and recruiting class, and then we go ahead and game-by-game preview the 2023 schedule for the Kentucky Wildcats. So ladies and gentlemen, let's talk Kentucky football coming into next season. Starting out with the quarterback position, as I mentioned in my intro, I do believe they do lose their quarterback, Will Levis. Last year was not as great of a year for him in that he had in 2021, but again, Will Levis still real good quarterback. 2,406 yards, 19 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and losing him, a lot of people wonder, okay, who are they going to go get now? Obviously, they're going to try to go get someone in the portal. Maybe they stay with Sharon, who was the backup last year. Nope. They went and they got Devin Leary. And I don't think people really realize how good of a quarterback Devin Leary is. I think Devin Leary, again, if he can stay healthy, that's the big question mark with Devin Leary. But if Devin Leary can stay healthy, he is going to be maybe even better than what Will Levis was last year for the Kentucky Wildcats. Not saying it'll be like a 2021 version of Will Levis, but Devin Leary, very underrated quarterback. He'll be really good for Kentucky in 2023. Looking at the running back room, well, you do lose a couple really good running backs. Of course, Chris Rodriguez, that lead rusher from last year, 904 yards, 6 touchdowns, is gone. And then Keviasi Smoke, also gone as well. However, you do return Juton McClain, who was your second leading rusher, and Ramon Jefferson is going to be in there as well. And you get a transfer over from Vanderbilt, really talented player in Ray Davis. That is a phenomenal pickup for Mark Stoops' group. In the wide receiver room, well, this might be the best wide receiver room that Kentucky has had in quite some time, maybe in the history of Kentucky football. Berrien Brown, Dane Key, Tavian Robinson come back, and in the tight end room, yeah, you lose Keaton Upshaw, but Jordan Dingle, Josh Caddis, and some other tight ends return for this team as well. So pass catchers, Kentucky's got plenty of them for Devin Leary to be able to work with. In the offensive line room, you do lose Tayshawn Manning. However, you're going to return Eli Cox, Yeager Burton, and Kenneth Horsey, and you also get a transfer coming in Marquez Cox over from Northern Illinois to help bolster up that offensive line as well. Now, defensive-wise, their only real loss on the defensive line, at least, is Justin Rogers. You return pretty much everyone else, Deion Walker, Octavius Oxendine, I apologize if I say last names or anything wrong as well, and then Trayvon Ribka are all back for the Kentucky Wildcats. In the linebacker room, you do lose DeAndre Square, who was your fourth leading tackler last year, did also have a pick with him as well. Jordan Wright is also gone. He was your third leading tackler last season. And then Jacques Jones leaving the linebacker room as well. However, your leading tackler from last year in Derek Jackson is coming back, as well as Tevin Wallace and J.J. Weaver. Weaver had 3 sacks last year. I do believe that led the team. It did. So J.J. Weaver, 3 sacks last year, so your leading sack man comes back in the linebacker room. And then defensive backs, Carrington Valentine and Keydron Smith are gone. Keydron Smith, a really talented player. Only 4 passes defended, but 2 picks. One of them returned for a pick 6 last year. Valentine led the team with 9 passes defended. Meanwhile, you do return your second leading tackler in Jordan Lovett. Zion Childress also comes back for this team. 34 tackles for him last year. And you get a couple really good transfers coming in. Jansen Dunn transfers over from Ohio State, former four-star recruit. And John Queese, or as some people like to call him, J.Q. Hardaway, transfers in from Cincinnati, a four-star transfer according to 24/7. The key for Kentucky this year is if Devin Leary can stay healthy. I think the defensive talent is there. Linebacker group may be a little bit of a question mark, but again, I have full faith in De'Aaron Jackson, J.J. Weaver. Can Devin Leary stay healthy? This is the best group of pass catchers Kentucky has had, maybe in the Mark Stoops era, if not in the entire history of Kentucky Wildcat football. But you get a good transfer there in Ray Davis. You got some good pass catchers, good quarterback in Devin Leary, pretty solid defense. Kentucky's got everything you need to be a sleeper team in the SEC. The Wildcats are coached by Mark Stoops. The offensive coordinator is Liam Cohen. The defensive coordinator is Brad White. And here's your schedule for Kentucky football in 2023. There are some tricky games on this schedule, and we will get to my prediction here later. Of course, we're going to go predict it game by game. But if you see a game underlined, hey, it's a home game, games in italics or the slanted text are road games. Games in green are games that I think Kentucky is going to win pretty easily. Games in yellow are games where, okay, hey, maybe the other team can put up a fight, but I still think Kentucky's going to win the game. And then red is a straight-up loss. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive on in to Kentucky football in 2023. And I don't really think I have to speak much on these first three games, right? Ball State is an okay middle-of-the-road MAC team, but what Kentucky has on their team is just going to be way too much. Kentucky's going to overpower Ball State, should be able to easily move forward and win that game. Eastern Kentucky is another one of those. That's an FCS-level program, and technically an in-state game, but Kentucky's going to have no problem with them either. And then Akron, one of the worst teams in FBS, one of the worst teams in the Mid-American Conference as well. So 3 easy wins for Kentucky to start off 2023. They can use these 3 games to play around with some schemes. Take a look at what Devin Leary does and pray to the Lord that Devin Leary does not get hurt in those first 3 games. My table's made of wood and I just knocked on it. Because again, that's the whole key for Kentucky. You got to make sure Devin Leary stays healthy this year. You have the pass catchers. The running back room is fine. The defense is going to be there. These first 3 games are all about tuning up, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, and then Kentucky can jump in to their SEC schedule with a little bit of a tricky first game here on the road against Vanderbilt. Now, again, Vanderbilt, I've talked about Auburn. I've talked about Kentucky, the team I'm doing now, being an SEC sleeper. Vanderbilt's another one of those teams that people should not overlook this year because Vanderbilt's going to be a team that's going to be competitive and is going to be rearing ready to go in the 2023 season. However, when I take a look at Kentucky, Ray Davis is there. He's a former Vanderbilt Commodore. I think he's going to want to prove to his former team that, well, he doesn't have to prove anything to his former team. I just think he really wants to be able to beat his former team. And I think with Devin Leary, this group of pass catchers, this defense, going on the road against Vanderbilt, maybe a little bit of a tricky one. And I think Vanderbilt definitely has the potential to put up a fight, but Kentucky is able to walk away with a win there at the end of the day. And then they get to play Florida. Florida is a team that I'm just not confident in this year at all. Now, that being said, Florida's going to win a couple games that they shouldn't win this year. It's just the nature of Florida. It's also the nature of playing football in the SEC. Everyone is really, really talented. But Florida especially, I just don't have the highest level of confidence in what Billy Napier is doing with the Florida Gators team right now. I think he's going to need some more time to be able to build the program. Kentucky, I think, is going to have the necessarily pieces in place here. And so I think Kentucky is going to go ahead, stay at home there, and beat the Florida Gators anywhere in that 0 to 13 point range. Okay, now things start to get interesting for Kentucky. You got a road game against Georgia, and I just see no way that Kentucky is able to beat Georgia here. Going on the road in Athens, winning that game, I think is going to be a near impossible task. Now, this Kentucky team has got some talent to maybe give Georgia a fight for a little bit, but I just don't see this one being particularly close. Kentucky not going to be able to win that game on the road against Georgia. But then, however, they do come back home and they do play Missouri. Again, Missouri's one of those fringe bowl game teams for me. This could be another very, very competitive game, but it's a competitive game that I see Kentucky walking away victors of. I just think that Kentucky is going to have everything they need to be able to slow down Eli Drinkwitz's team, and I think Kentucky will, after that loss to Georgia, quickly bounce back with a win here against Missouri. Okay, now you jump into the bye week, you're sitting 6-1, and all of a sudden the conversation around Lexington becomes, okay, this team is in a real good position, but when you look at the games that are after the bye week, it's a very tricky road for Kentucky to even win one of those games, which I think they will, and we'll get to that later. But man, those last 5 games are brutal. Even if you knock out Missouri, throw Georgia in there in the last half of the schedule, like, yeeks, that is rough. I think they lose that game against Tennessee. I think Tennessee offensively is just going to be too fast-paced for this Kentucky defense to handle. And I don't think this Kentucky offense is going to be explosive enough to be able to put up the point value that it may need to be able to beat Tennessee. Now, I may be wrong about the defense. The defense may be able to find ways to slow Tennessee down, but Tennessee is one of the most well-schemed offenses in the country. I don't see Kentucky being able to beat Tennessee, and so they suffer their second loss of the year. And then I think they suffer their third loss of the year. Look, they're going on the road. It's a tough environment. They're playing in Mississippi State's home stadium, where the cowbells are going to be ringing loud and proud. And Mississippi State is a team that I think is too talented to really lose this game, right? Not saying that Kentucky's not talented, but Mississippi State is going to win their fair share of games in the SEC this year as well, right? For as many questions that I have about Mississippi State, this is a game that I don't see them losing. So Kentucky drops their second straight game, and they drop their third straight game. This is a situation like with Georgia. I think Bama's got one of the most talented rosters in the entire country, as they do pretty much almost every single year. Alabama's going to outclass Kentucky, and I don't know if this necessarily is a boat race. I think Kentucky could make it pretty close, but Bama easily is able to win that one. And then Kentucky loses their fourth straight game on the road against South Carolina, because I love what Shane Beamer and company have at South Carolina with Spencer Rattler. And I think South Carolina is moving and grooving towards the end of the year. I don't see Kentucky going on the road to be able to beat South Carolina, but it's okay. You get a shot for redemption here against your rival in Louisville. Now, Louisville is going to be a very sneaky team in the ACC. Jeff Brom is there, and they got a lot of nice pieces there to be able to do some damage in the ACC. However, I do not think Kentucky is losing 5 straight. I think they go on the road, win a very, very close game against their in-state rivals in Louisville, which leads me to be 7-5. You started out really well, but that last 5 games of the schedule are just brutal. Kentucky can be a much better team record-wise than I have them predicted as, but that schedule, especially towards the end of the year, is just really, really hard. And for me to sit here and not be certain about the health and status of Devin Leary, whether he can stay healthy for a full season or not, has me sitting Kentucky at 7-5. But that's going to do it for this prediction video. Hey, I'll catch you in the next one, but make sure to like, comment, subscribe, anything you can to help support the channel. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.